Gary, you can take the end there. And our next introduction, just this a few months ago, she went off to the Leadville 100, where she was the defending champion, Leadville 100 mountain bike race. She's a multiple-time 24-hour mountain bike solo champion. She was honored at the Competitor Awards previously as an adventure racer, and this year she went back to Leadville and went 7:47, broke the course record. Please give it up for the two-time champion of Leadville 100, Rebecca Rush, the Queen of Pain. All right. She's coming off winning Ironman Arizona. She didn't get the start this year at Ironman Kona, was not feeling great. She'd won the 3 previous years. Earlier this summer, she had the fastest Ironman distance race of all time when she won 8:19 with a 2:48 marathon off the bike. Please give it up for the 3-time Ironman champion, Chrissy Wellington. She holds the distinction of being a Ironman 70.3 world champion and now an Ironman Hawaii champion as well. A former basketball player, believe it or not, at 5'3". She moved on to something that she's a little bit better at. Please give it up for our 2010 Ford Ironman world champion, Mirinda Carfrae. How about this for a panel? Oh my God. Let's make sure all these, can I turn on your microphones? Let's see.
Yes.
Are all your microphones working? Carrie, is yours guys working? Yeah?
Hello.
Oh. Hello, hey. Wow, this is pretty cool. Runner, mountain bike, everything, basketball, triathlon. So let's start, Kara, for you, growing up, was running always primary for you? Was that something that you got, was that your first sport? What did you get into early?
I tried every sport, every single sport, and I wasn't really good at anything, to be honest. I was primarily a dancer, but I played every single sport, and I didn't discover running until I was about 12 years old, and it was the first thing I was like naturally good at, which is nice, finally.
And through high school and college and then on to the Olympics, what was, for you, making that transformation from being, okay, I'm running 10,000, and then I'm going to jump to the marathon? That's a huge jump. What was the plan, and how'd you execute it?
I started training with my coach that I train with now in 2004, and right away he started saying, I think you should run the marathon. And at the time I was like, you're crazy, I don't even run the 10K. And so he kind of convinced me to get back into the 10K in 2006, and the Olympics were in 2008, so that was our focus. But it was in the back of my mind the whole time. And then from my final at the Olympic Games in the 5K to the New York City Marathon was about 9 weeks.
9 weeks.
And we just decided to go for it, so we went for it.
So wait, so you just went from 5K and said, hey, I got 9 weeks, I'm going to train and run a marathon.
Yeah, I mean, we felt like we didn't need the pressure of training for, months and months on end, and he kind of felt like, let's just do it and do it big and then build from there. And so we just kind of went for it.
And how'd you do?
It was okay.
Come on, tell them what you did.
I got third, ran 225.
Third, ran 225, first time out. Nice. That's pretty good. So, Rebecca, the Queen of Pain, Chrissy's been saying she wants to do Leadville one of these days. She likes that. So, take us through Leadville and how tough that race is. The first time you went there, did it take you by surprise at all?
I went to Leadville. Well, Leadville was short for me. I normally do 24-hour racing. So signing up for a 100-miler was like, sweet, I'll get to sleep in a bed tonight. This is a sprint. There's no dark.
Wait. 100 miles on a mountain bike is a sprint.
It is, but it's a tough sprint. The thing that makes Leadville pretty hard is it starts at 10,200 feet and goes up from there. So that's the intimidating factor. And there's about 1,500 people who line up for that race. So it's a cluster. So the first year was definitely a learning experience, and I got a little bit lucky. And the second year, I came back a lot more prepared. And if Chrissy shows up, I'm not going to tell her any of my secrets.
So seriously, between that first year, was it more of a nutrition thing? Or, I mean, obviously you're doing 24-hour races. You got to have a handle on nutrition.
Yeah, the nutrition was pretty dialed. Like I said, in a sprint 100-miler, like a sprint race. It's mostly liquid nutrition, where a 24-hour race, I'm ending up having to eat a little bit more solid calories and
Right.
solid food. But the
Right.
nutrition was the biggest difference between the first and the second year for Leadville was preparation. The second year I actually knew the course, I knew how long each hill was, I knew what it was like, so I actually wasn't taken by surprise the second year. I could train for it a lot more specifically.
And growing up, what were your sports?
I started as a cross-country runner, ended up doing a lot of rock climbing, paddling, adventure racing, outrigger canoeing, and my newest sport, mountain biking.
So you really didn't get into mountain biking. Did you get into mountain biking mainly through adventure racing?
Yeah, and mountain biking was my worst leg of adventure racing. I hated it. And my ex-adventure racing teammates can't believe now I'm a mountain bike racer. So there's hope for everybody if I could do it.
So Chrissy and people in the audience know your story a little bit, that you were into triathlon for a bit and then went to Nepal for a while and then came back. What point was it where you decided, you know what, I want to give this triathlon thing another shot? And you didn't just say another shot, you really took it seriously.
Yeah, I started triathlons in 2004. That's when I first got a road bike and set about trying to learn how to ride that. And then I took some time off from my job and went to live in Nepal. And that's really when I discovered a real love for biking and for endurance sports. We just biked every day before work and we were running the trails. But it was really sport at its rawest. You know, there was no training logs, there was no sessions. We just went out and we biked or we ran, and it was just a hell of a lot of fun. And when I got back to the UK in 2006 and back to my old job, I really decided to give triathlon a shot. And things progressed pretty quickly from there. I qualified for the World Age Group Championships that year and won those. And it was really then that I had a big decision to make. And I never want to look back on my life and think, what if I hadn't taken that chance? So I gave up my job and I took that chance and I went full-time as an athlete, and the next year I managed to win Kona.
Well, but you went to a training camp. You basically joined a group and moved away from home. And that's pretty scary, going off to a foreign country and basically living and breathing triathlon.
It is. It was incredibly daunting, and I have to admit the first few months were very hard.
Yeah.
You go from having a very rich and varied life to having a very kind of monkish, monodimensional existence. And I also felt very much like a new girl. I knew nothing about triathlon. I didn't know half of the people that that I was training with, and it was very difficult for me initially to really fit into the group and feel that I was a part of it. And it was only really after that first year that I got used to the lifestyle and really felt that I had found my place as a triathlete.
But originally your thought was short distance, and next thing you know, Brett Sutton saying you should go do Ironman.
Yeah, it was similar to Cara. I was training very much as a short course athlete. I'd never really heard of Ironman. I didn't know too much about Kona, and it was really Brett that said to me, you'll be an Ironman athlete. And I said, no way, you're crazy to do an Ironman. I'll stick to short course racing. That's painful enough. And he threw me into a race which I love called the Alpe d'Huez long course.
Right.
Which is a really phenomenal race. And that went very well for me. And I remember him saying to me after that race, Chrissy, do you want to do an Ironman? And all I said to him was, am I ready? And he said yes. And within 5 weeks, I was on the start line of my first Ironman. But similar to Cara, I hadn't really done Ironman-specific training. It wasn't tailored towards Ironman. I guess I don't necessarily need the volume of training that people think that you might do for an Ironman. But I was very much thrown into it. It was a baptism of fire. But I think ignorance is bliss sometimes.
So Marinda, speaking of coming from a totally different place, you grew up playing basketball. and you were thinking that you could make the national team, right? That was the goal.
Yeah, I was certainly hoping to represent Australia in some way, and yeah, I grew up playing basketball. My brothers played, and I sort of followed them into the sport and fell in love with it. I'd play pretty much every day. I'd be beaten up a lot by my brothers in the backyard trying to play against them. They were obviously a lot bigger than I was, but yeah, I just loved it, and I threw my heart and soul into the sport, but unfortunately my body didn't really develop into a basketball player.
5'3".
So yeah, at 5'3", I made the state team. I played for my my state, but never really,
Right.
was going to make it a big impact.
So what got you to triathlon?
So just through playing basketball in the off season, I was one of those players that did the extra mileage. I'd go and do a little bit of running and a little bit of weights training, and that's what I wanted to do for the upcoming season. So myself and a couple of my my teammates decided that in the off season we'd get super fit this year and see if that helped on the basketball court. And our team physiotherapist was also a triathlon coach, and I didn't know at the time. He just said, yeah, come along 3 times a week. I'll put you in the gym. I'll make you bigger and stronger and faster. So we're like, sure, we'll do that. Let's get it done. And I was all about getting bigger and stronger. And then I met a few triathletes actually, and from there I basically played that season, or I sat on the bench a lot now in our open women's team that I was playing for, because I was a junior in the team at the time. But went from there and basically met these girls, and one day he saw me running and he just said, you run really well. I'd never been coached to run, I just ran. And said, I think you'd make a really good triathlete. Have you ever thought of giving that sport a try? And at that point in my life, I was sort of ready for a new challenge. And after being in a team sport, the thing that drew me to triathlon was it's because it was individual.
You didn't have to count on anybody else.
You didn't have to count on anyone else. And I was always the one doing the extra training. I was always fit and strong and never tired throughout a game. And sometimes you may have been let down by another team member that didn't do the extra training or shooting or that sort of thing. So that's kind of what attracted me to the sport. That it, and at the end of the day, in team sports there's a little bit of politics as well. So, the other thing is, you cross the line in triathlon, and if you're in 10th place, then it comes down to you. If you're in first place, then no one can take it away from you. You've won the race, and you've earned that title.
And what happened the first time you did a triathlon?
I did my first triathlon. I never swam. I was about 18 when I found the sport. I never swam, never biked, never ran. Other than up and down a basketball court, really. Until this season, I started training with this coach. And my first triathlon, I believe, was probably a year after I started, because I didn't get a bike for another 6 months. So I just swam and ran. And it was, I think, a 300-meter swim, 6-mile bike, and maybe like a 1.5-mile run. So it was tiny race compared to what we do now. And I thought I was going to die. That was the toughest day of my life to that point. I just remember this, I think running out of the water as well, there were stairs, so there was that obstacle as well. And then, I ended up finishing okay. I think I got 3rd overall in a little local triathlon, but man, it really hurt. And for some reason, it just made me want to do it again. There's something wrong with us.
Who can relate to that? Pretty much, yeah, thank you. There you go.
So that was my first experience.
So you were in basketball for what, 11 years?
Yeah,
11 years. Never traveled internationally?
Yeah, never took a flight internationally.
So when you got into triathlon, how long did it take before you traveled internationally?
So I guess basically 99 was my first race, and by 2001 I was in the Australian team, and I went off to Canada to race.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is great. So Kara, your progression, they said you jumped in, you ran a 2:25 marathon. At that point, did you think, okay, I'm putting all my eggs in the marathon basket, I'm going to focus on this? But you still have so much raw speed. Did you want to try to balance?
Yeah, in 07 I was the world championship bronze medalist in the 10K, so I wasn't ready to walk away from the track yet, but I definitely loved racing down the roads and I loved running the marathon. So it's kind of been a balance still. I think for the London Games, my focus will be the marathon, but for instance, we have world championships this summer and I'm focusing on the 10K for that.
And really, and your coach is Alberto?
Yep, Alberto Salazar.
Alberto Salazar, one of the greatest runners in history. And one time on the radio show, he talked about how the biggest mistake marathoners make is they start substituting quantity for quality. And they start thinking of themselves as marathoners and go backwards in terms of their speed, because you can never afford to give away your speed.
Absolutely not. And the marathon has changed a lot over the last 2 years. It's coming down to a sprint quite a bit. So if you've abandoned your speed for more miles, you're going to finish off the podium.
How tough has it been for you, now that you're a mom, to little Colt? How old is Colt?
He will be 4 months in a few days.
There's Colt over there with Adam
a little
Goucher.
pudgy guy back there.
There we go. Also one of our great American runners. How tough has that transition been, going through, being a mom and then coming back and trying to get back to world-class level?
It's been hard. I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, it's been so easy. It's been really hard. I've been very fatigued, but I was fortunate enough to run throughout my whole pregnancy. I ran and lifted weights the day I went into labor, and a week. I mean, I say run, but I mean, it was pretty slow, but still, I ran the whole time, and a week after he was born, I started running again, and I'm on my 5th week of over 100 miles, so he's 17 weeks old. So the running part came back quickly. It's just my speed isn't there, and I'm just tired, really tired.
Really? You got a 4-month-old and you're tired. That's a surprise. That is really a surprise. So, Rebecca, from adventure racing days, for folks out there who have not done an adventure race, take us through one of those expedition races that you were involved with. I mean, these things are, basically, these are Chrissy Wellington vacations, but they're crazy.
Yeah, Kiwis are notoriously really good at adventure racing because that's their lifestyle.
She's English.
Yeah. Okay, you sound Kiwi. I apologize.
She's very insulted by that.
Someone who can live in Nepal could do an adventure race. This is our team. Maybe we'll pair up for another one.
Yes. Oh, this would be a good adventure
That'd be
racing
a rocking team.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Exactly. But yeah, adventure racing. They're typically 600 to 1,000 kilometers. 5, 6, 7 days nonstop in a team atmosphere. You go to a place like Borneo or Kyrgyzstan or somewhere that you have to look up on a map to find out where it is. And they don't tell you where to go. You travel around, paddle, run, climb, ride camels, horses. It's kind of a mixed bag of tricks, but definitely endurance. But I've kind of gone backwards from the 7-day races to 24-hour mountain bike racing to now my sprint 100-milers. So as I get older, I'm going backwards and working on more speed. Like you said, I've definitely changed my training to be quality versus quantity now.
So what do you do besides mountain bike? I mean, do you for your speed and for your core? Are you in the gym a lot? And how do you build speed on a mountain bike?
I've done a lot shorter training, a lot more time working on pedal stroke, actually becoming a cyclist. I've only been riding for about 6 years, so I really had to focus on the technique of it, learn how to ride a bike. But I also Nordic ski, I backcountry ski, I swim. I really believe in mixing it all up, and I live in the snow, so I can't ride my bike this time of year unless it's in front of the television. So I do still mix it up. Even though I'm not adventure racing as a full-time athlete, I believe in cross-training for sure.
So you run?
I do run.
Nice. You got that cross-country roots. You got to do that.
Absolutely. And running, I mean, it's the most bang for your buck other than cross-country skiing. I'd say, you can get a lot done in 1 hour.
Right. So, Chrissy, you come off of your 8:19 when you went to Roth, and world record, fastest time ever. Did you feel going into that race that you were ready for a performance like that, going to Roth and going 8:19? Was that? Do you think about records when you go into a race, or do you just think, I'm just going to go as hard as I can for as long as I can?
Yeah, that's pretty much the strategy, as hard as I can for as long as I can. I remember saying to a fellow athlete, Belinda Granger, before the race, there was a lot of talk about could I lower the record from the previous year, and I said to Belinda, I really don't think that it can be broken by that much, maybe a minute, maybe a little bit more, but definitely not by 12 minutes. And I was shocked by that result. But Roth is a phenomenal race, and the race course and the race directors really do everything to make you have the performance of your life. they support you in every way possible. And the swim is a fast swim in a canal. The bike course, it's 180K of closed roads, great road surfaces. So that makes for fast times. And then the run is mainly on trail, which actually I think in the latter stages of the marathon really helps you. Your legs don't fatigue as much because you haven't got that pounding on the tarmac. So I think that's conducive to fast running as well. But no, I really didn't think that I would go 8:19. But I'm so proud to hold the world record, and what I hope that it shows is that the women are raising the bar, and people like Rinny and me and Julie and many others are showing that more is possible in this sport. And, Rinny ran 2:53 at Kona this year. It's absolutely phenomenal. And, other girls are raising the bar, and I think that we're narrowing the gap and we're showing that more can be achieved, and hopefully that others will look at us and be inspired and be encouraged, and the boys will look over their shoulder and worry that we're chasing them down. But yeah, I think it's an iterative process, and it's one that I'm really excited to be part of.
So when you were in Roth, what place did you finish overall?
I think it was 7th.
So there was a few guy pros that you might have run by during the marathon.
There might have been a few.
I think they've got shirts for that now.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Nice. So what people don't realize, Christine, I think one of the reasons you've been as good as you've been is some of the stuff you do in the off season, like your trip to Argentina for your friend's wedding. Right? Was it Argentina or was it Chile? Argentina. So this was last year. Last year or 2 years ago? Last year. Last year, friend gets married in Argentina, so Chrissy goes down to be at the wedding, and of course, goes to the wedding in, a limo, or how'd you get to the wedding?
There's no other way to get to a wedding but on a mountain bike.
There you go. And where was your bridesmaid dress?
My bridesmaid dress was coming in a car that failed to arrive, so I risked turning up at the wedding in my cycling shorts and T-shirt. Luckily, it arrived in the nick of time. Otherwise, I would have been fashionably underdressed for the wedding.
Well, and then normally the couple that gets married goes off on their own honeymoon, but you guys decided to have 6 of you go off, or it's 6 with the wedding couple, right, to go off on a little mountain bike excursion over the Andes on roads that had never been, trails that had never been ridden on before. So at your slowest, what were you guys averaging pushing those bikes through the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, I have to praise you this. The group of people that I did this with was friends that I met in Nepal. So
right.
they're quite adventurous and up for a challenge. So yeah, we tried to do a bike route that had never been biked before, and for good reason. So we spent a lot of time pushing our bikes. So push bike was quite an apt name for it then. This is probably our fastest. No, one day we averaged 2 kilometers an hour. We were literally pushing our bikes for a lot of the time, up glaciers, down glaciers, and we'd come across a river, and we had no means of crossing it, except we had ropes and some carabiners, so we had to erect some kind of pulley structure to get across.
Rebecca's going, I've been there. Yeah.
I'm thinking you need to be on an adventure racing team with me one of these days.
Oh, my God.
2 kilometers an hour, I don't think I'll be setting the adventure racing world alight. But no, it was phenomenal, aside from on the 5th day when we ran out of food.
Yeah, well, so that you run out of food and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and what'd you do?
We persuaded a local farmer to slaughter a goat.
So you basically knocked on the guy's door and said, excuse me, we're out of food. Can you kill a goat for me?
That was, yeah.
That'll be a yes. That'll be an affirmative.
That's what happened. And the goat that was very happy, trotting around the fields about 20 minutes before we arrived, 20 minutes later was on a spit. It tasted good, though.
Nice. Nice. See, but you're up at altitude, you're pushing a bike up a hill. You might not call that training, but that's training.
Yeah, it's training, but that's what I love about sport, and I like sport in its rawest sense. So I really would like to do some adventure racing and kind of get away from the structured, kind of commercialized nature of sport, and really get back to basics and do things that are cross country, that require a little bit of, well, I mean, our sport requires mental strength and mental strategy, but it's a different type of intellectual challenge, I think, doing an adventure race, and it's something that I would really like. I don't know if people would call my holidays a holiday, but they were thoroughly enjoyable.
Rinny's going, where do I sign up? This sounds like so much fun. So Rinny, the first time you go to Kona in 2009, you're coming off of, you had won the 70.3 World Championships a couple years before that, and went to Kona just, really it was your first Ironman, so to see what the thing was about. What did you learn from that first year?
I guess the main thing I took from my first year there was to race my own race. In that first year, you're right, I had no idea. I was a complete rookie. I'd definitely done my homework, and I had a good nutrition plan in place, and I'd watched these guys race for years and spoken to a bunch of successful athletes and athletes that had failed there, and found out reasons why they'd succeeded and why they'd failed. But when it came down to it, I think 2 days before the race, I said to my coach, yeah, but how do I pace the bike? And she's like, you'll know. I'm like, no, really. Like, how hard do I push? Because every other race I've done has been 70.3 or Olympic distance. And you're pretty much going, well, Chrissy races the Ironman like this, but you're pretty much going as hard as you can for the whole race. And so I'd spoke to a couple of people, and they'd told me to be a little bit cautious on the bike, and that you don't want to get too hot, because if you overheat, then there's no turning back, and you don't want to be another casualty out in those lava fields. So I was a little cautious on the bike. I had a terrible swim, actually, and then rode up to a couple of the girls, like Belinda Granger, one of the best cyclists in our sport, Joe Lawn, McKeely Jones, seasoned veterans that have raced Kona and know the conditions and know how to race it. And then I sort of sat off the back of that group and just sat and felt like it was a bit easy, but like, I'm not going to argue with these guys.
They're veterans. They're Ironman champions.
They're veterans. And at that point, Chrissy was like 20 minutes up the road, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to win in my first one, but maybe I can get on the podium. And I just wanted to race a smart race, and I got off the bike and ran. I think I ran the right way. I think I paced my run better, but the bike, I really was, I trained myself to race at a certain speed, and I didn't put it out there on the day. So that's what I took into this year, this past year.
And the tough part is you're coming in, you're having a great run, you're in second place, and at that point you're in second place, so there's really no reason to go hard. But then your coach Siri Lindley's on the side of the road going, ooh, I think you could break the course record. So you couldn't let it off. You had that first year you're out there, you had to go hard the entire time.
Yeah, and in 2009, it was so hot. Like, compare 2009 to 2010, the conditions on the run were like completely opposite. We had cloud cover in 2010, which made for faster run times. But in 2009, it was just scorching. And I was really, really hurting. I was probably about 5 miles from the finish, and my coach was on the sideline, and I'm like, I was pretty confident that I'd secured second place, and I wanted to just jog it in and do a little victory lap sort of thing. And my coach says to me, you keep the pressure on. You look really good. You're fine. I think you can break the run course record. Man, I just wanted to just stop there and punch her in the face. Like, she's sitting over there, so I can say that.
Where's Siri at? Oh, there's Siri. For a few seconds there, I sort of lost it a little bit, but then I pulled myself together and thought, well, yeah, that'd be pretty cool to break the run course record that Chrissy owned. And
yeah, I just sort of put my head down and kept going, and fortunately got under that time. So
2:56.
2:56.
Nice. So, Kara, this as you're gearing up for London, it's going to be short distance. And will you run? Which marathon are you going to run this? Are
Well,
you
I
going
am
to run
running Boston
You are
on
going to
April
run Boston.
18th. Yeah, giving it another shot.
Who's running
Yeah.
Boston? There, we got some Boston
Yay.
people out there.
No, Boston in '09 was, I mean, of all the races I've ever run in my entire life, it's my favorite experience I've ever had. And I, like was saying earlier about the sprint, I was in the lead and I ended up third down the
Right.
home stretch. So I've been thinking about it every day since. And I know it's a little rushed. Colt will only be 6 months old, but
You're going
I'm doing
for
it. Yeah,
You're
I'm going to be
going
there.
for it.
I'm doing it.
I remember after that race, I mean, third place for American woman at Boston, and that just shows you exactly what Chrissy's talking about, how things have changed. People aren't satisfied with the status quo. You want to do something different. You want to win Boston, not just be
Heck
there.
yeah. I don't want to sit on the podium with two people higher. You know, I want that laurel wreath really, really badly.
So this year, the goal, win Boston.
Absolutely. Yes.
There we go. Winning Boston. Nice. When was the last time an American woman,
There
Karen,
it
when was the
is.
last time an American woman won Boston?
85.
Oh, you just happen to know that. So, Rebecca, now that you're going to be going head-to-head with Chrissy at Leadville next summer, is the goal to be a three-peat at Leadville? And do you have some other things on the agenda?
The Leadville three-peat is definitely a goal. I don't think any other woman has done 3 in a row, so that's the goal. I don't know if I have to break my own record again, because last year was pretty special. So, but yeah, three-peat is the main goal. And then, like Chrissy said, I'm really mixing it up with my bike races and going to Argentina, going to a lot of different places, and doing a lot of stage racing, stage mountain bike racing, because I think it's really important to choose events that are just fun to go to, where you take the pressure off and you just go travel and have a great
Right.
time.
Here, Kara, back at you real quick. What does Alberto Salazar bring to the table for you? The fact that, you know, he obviously a legendary runner and one of the brightest guys around, but for you personally, what has he meant to your career?
He's meant everything to my career because I started training with him in '04, and before that I had been chronically injured for 4
Right.
years, and I had been written off completely. And he completely resurrected me, and most importantly, he helped me find the love for the sport that was just totally gone. And he brought that back to my life. And I could never thank him enough for that. And we just have a great relationship. I believe in him. You know, he's been there, done that.
Yeah.
But really it was just remembering why I ran in the first place, because I loved it. And
So
that had been gone.
How did he do that? How did he just keeping it fun?
Just positive. Everything was so positive, you know, like running times that were so slow compared to what I had run, but being excited about that and then making the next step and making my life more than running, you know, really focusing on how grateful I was to be married to Adam and to be having the opportunity that I have to have a contract with Nike and to be able to do that. And just instead of feeling sorry for myself and I'm always injured and I can never show anybody how good I am, to just being like, I have this amazing life. Like, I need to start living it.
You know, and also the other thing is American running, not that many years ago, it was very difficult for American women to make a living if you weren't just chasing it on the road. The contracts really weren't there.
Yeah.
When Jenny Behringer signed a big contract last year, and it was, 7, 8 different shoe companies going after her, where it used to be just 1 or 2. So it seems like it's a good time for the running world.
It's good. American women have really stepped up on that world stage, and that's
Yeah.
made a huge difference. And that's been really exciting because I feel like I've gotten to be a part of that, and that's just been like a highlight of my life for sure.
All right, and Rebecca, in terms of mountain biking and 24-hour racing, Leadville 100 was something people really weren't talking about a couple years ago. Lance going there certainly didn't hurt, but everybody talks about Leadville 100 now. It's sort of up there with a Boston or an Ironman when it comes to that specific sport, the highest level event. What is it about Leadville that makes it so special?
I think the thing about Leadville is there are so many people gathered together who just love to ride their bikes, and it's probably the biggest race in numbers. There's quite a bit of history around the race, but from the pros to, Lance Armstrong to anybody to the last person. We're all doing the same course. It's an out and back course, so you actually see eye to eye every person on the course. And that's pretty special to be able to share that with so many different people. And everyone at the start line just loves to ride their bike. And so anytime you get that kind of energy together, it's a pretty special experience. And then the movie, really, I mean, if you haven't seen the 2 films, it's pretty exciting to see a mountain bike race. I mean, that never happens on the big screen. So that was a great push for our sport as well.
Actually, we'll have some of that footage in the piece tonight.
All right.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And are there more women getting into mountain biking?
I absolutely think there are more women, and you can see from the products that are out here, women-specific bikes from Specialized, shoes, helmets. I mean, that stuff didn't exist, even 5-6 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah, there are a lot more women doing it. I'm teaching women's clinics all the time. I'm getting questions from girls and 70-year-old women, the whole range of people who are wanting to get involved in the sport. And I think we're probably all seeing it across the board. It's exciting to see so many people, being inspired.
Right.
If we inspire one person, it's worth it.
Yeah, and Christy's already signed up for one of your clinics for Leadville, by the way.
I'm not teaching her anything. No way.
Stay away from her race. That's what she's saying. That's right, sister. Stay away.
You can go, Chrissy. Go on, please.
Miranda said she'd pay your entry fee. She's going to ante up for you. It won't be a problem at all. Go ahead. Hey, do some 24 hours are good too, with night lights and things like that. That would be really good. So, Chrissy, this year, what will you be doing? Are you going to Africa, South Africa, to do an Ironman, or is that decided yet? Did I just let the cat out of the bag that I wasn't supposed to?
Good one, Bob.
Yeah, my first big race will be Ironman South Africa on April 10th. I'm really excited about it. I've been to South Africa a couple of times, once for pleasure, once for work. So hopefully this will be a bit of both. But no, I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's a race I haven't done, and that's important to me to do. To mix it up. I like going back to the same races. That's always fun because you could develop a rapport with, the local community, the course. And it is always nice to go back, but it's also nice to try new things and to travel to new places. So Ironman South Africa will be my first one. I'll do a European Ironman in July, but I haven't confirmed which one yet. And then probably Kona. And then between times, I want to do 2 or 3 70.3s. I might do, probably do one in June and definitely one in August. And I also like to do a couple of run races. I do the Boulder each year, which is a big 10K race in Boulder, which many of you have probably heard of. And that's always great fun, and it's got a great atmosphere. And I enjoy, doing that and doing something that where there's no pressure for me to perform. I actually came last in the elite race this year, but had a lot of fun in the process.
And of course, Muddy Buddy.
Well, the highlight of last season was the Boulder Muddy Buddy.
Exactly. Thank you.
Where I did the
mini.
The kids race, the mini Muddy Buddy with Bob. And I'm ashamed to say that Bob, dressed as a frog, beat me.
I own her. I own 3-time
Bob
Ironman champion.
owns me.
Exactly.
So I'm already in training. I have my frog outfit, and I'm going to get ready to take him down this August.
Nice. So, Miranda, you finishing second the first time out, and then this last year, you took the lead and probably had a sense that you were going to win. And coming down Ali'i Drive, I mean, that's like the Boston Marathon, like Leadville. You come down that final stretch knowing that you're going to get the wreath, or which you'll get this year, or knowing that you're going to defend your title, and knowing you're going to defend your title, and this time it's the first time for you. What were the thoughts going through your head?
Words can't really put that moment, do that moment justice. The first year I got second, and that was an amazing year for me, and I was trying to break the course record then, so I actually don't really remember much of the finish shoot part because I was sprinting for the finish line. But this year I made that turn on Ali'i Drive, and it's funny, like you just basically see so many colors, and then it's amazing that you can pick out voices, like you can pick out voices of either your mom or a close friend or your coach so clearly, and you can see the look of joy on their face, and that's what makes it special. The people that have put so much time into you and have believed in you, and to prove them right coming down that finish line. It's just really special, and it's a moment I'll never forget.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a big round of applause? Kara Goucher, Rebecca Rush, Chrissy Wellington, Miranda Carfrey, four of the greatest endurance athletes on the planet on one stage here at Endurance Live.